Welcome everyone to today's session. Thank you for taking the time to join. Today's session, we will be going over our ROBS 401k Quick Start Guide. So please like this video and subscribe for more videos like this. Let's connect. Please ask questions in the chat, and I'll be answering them here as we go through the slides. So let's get started. So just to give you a preview of where we're going, we're going to discuss what a ROBS 401k plan is, some three key initial considerations, and then what it would take to get started. So the first initial consideration here is some good news, but there's a catch. So before we get into the considerations, we're going to first talk about what it is. So what a ROBS is a transaction that allows you to use retirement money to fund your own business, whether that's a startup business or you're buying a business, and you can use that money without having to pay taxes or penalties, as opposed to if you were to take money out of your retirement account and then you have to report that as taxable income and maybe pay a penalty if you're under 59 and a half. So the ROBS plan allows you to essentially invest your retirement money in yourself. You can use it for business financing. Again, no taxes or penalties. You have the potential to start a business totally debt-free, or some people will use the money in conjunction with an SBA loan. So they use it essentially as a down payment to get an SBA loan. Now there is a catch though. There's requirements you have to follow. So you are setting up a 401k plan. So on top of that, it's a rollover as business startup. So there's initial steps that must be followed to set up the plan. And then going forward, there's going to be ongoing requirements. So some key examples here are you have to run the business as a C corporation. You have to work in the business as a bona fide employee. There's no related party transactions. And we'll talk more about that a little bit in detail as we go through these slides. And then you need to maintain that 401k plan. So there's annual 401k requirements like a filing, like evaluation, like offering the plan to employees. So let's look at this first initial key consideration. So first of all, just are you eligible, of course? So in order to be able to use your retirement money to fund your own business without having to pay taxes or penalties, you have to have eligible retirement money. In other words, if your money is in a Roth IRA, or if your money is in your current employer plan and you're not going to quit your job in order to pursue this business opportunity, you're not going to be able to roll over your retirement money. So it's got to be in your former employer plan or a non-Roth IRA. If it's in your current employer plan, the only way you're really going to be able to access it is if you've rolled it over from a previous plan to that plan, or you're over 59 and a half. You've got to be funding an eligible business. So the business that you're buying or the business that you're starting needs to be an operating company. And so what that means is there's essentially two ways to be an operating company. You could either be providing goods or services, or you are what they call a real estate operating company. So in other words, you cannot fund a business that's just, for example, lending money out to people. That's not a good or a service. That's not a real estate operating company. And then if you're buying a business, you have to buy that business from an unrelated person or a company that's owned by an unrelated person. So you can't buy the business from your spouse, for example. That would be a related person, or a business that you already owned, of course. Now you can't fund the business that you already own, but there's specific steps to do that. So now the third key eligibility requirement that we want to highlight in this slide is that you must work in the business as a bona fide employee. Typically that means you're working at least 1,000 hours per year in the business. So let's go to the next slide. And again, thanks everyone for joining, and please ask questions in the chat. Don't hesitate. So the next consideration as you're evaluating the ROBS plan is, how much do I want to invest? So there is technically no minimum amount that's required. However, most of our customers or prospective customers find that if they are not going to invest that much retirement money, it's generally not worth the costs to set up a ROBS plan, as well as having to comply with the ongoing requirements. Usually that cutoff is around 50,000, but it could be 35, just kind of depends on your situation. If you are looking to invest $50,000 or less, and your business is not going to have any full-time W-2 employees, that's going to be a W-2 employee that's working 1,000 hours or more, or a W-2 employee that's going to work 500 hours or more for 3 consecutive years, you might want to use the solo 401k loan for business financing option, where you would set up a solo 401k and then take a loan from that plan to fund your business. And I will include a link in the description when this posts on YouTube, this video posts on YouTube, where you can learn more about that option. And of course, you can always contact us at our phone number, 1-800-489-7571, or you can email me at George, George, at mysolo401k.net. We'd be happy to go over that option. But that's going to be a good consideration there. How much do you want to invest in terms of retirement money? Now, another good threshold consideration here is, can I follow the ongoing requirements? So you want to make sure you're aware, you educate yourself, and we educate our customers every day and our prospective customers every day on the requirements and how they're specifically going to apply to you and your business plan. But ones that will always apply are going to be the C corporation requirement. So you might have a tax advisor who's saying, yeah, you should really do this as an S corporation. Unfortunately, that's not going to work. You have to run the business as a C corporation. So that means you're going to be filing an 1120 every year at the federal level with the IRS. It has to be a C corporation. There's no exceptions. Related party transactions. So the entity, that C corporation that's funded with your retirement money, it cannot interact or enter into transactions with other businesses that you own. So I gave a simple example here. A dairy farmer cannot use a ROBS 401k plan to fund an ice cream shop and then have his ice cream shop buy milk from his dairy farm, because there he's funding the ice cream shop using a ROBS plan where he knows that ice cream shop is going to be buying the milk from his other business, his dairy farm. That would be a related party transaction. That would be prohibited. You cannot use a ROBS plan if that's what your plan is. You also want to make sure you're going to follow those ongoing requirements. So, for example, there's the annual 5,500 filing. There's annual evaluation requirements. There's mandatory plan updates, offering the plan to employees, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we, as part of our services, we provide all that ongoing compliance support. The cost of evaluation is included with our annual fee. The 5,500 is included with our annual fee. All the mandatory plan updates, we take care of that automatically, offering the plan to employees, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where you want to make sure that you are working with a company that's going to take care of that for you, because it's very important. If you look at the IRS guidance, where they've reviewed these ROBS plans, a lot of times where they find non-compliance is not so much in following those initial steps, but really keeping the plan up to date with those ongoing requirements and in compliance with those ongoing requirements. Great, so let's get started. So what would the process be? So mechanically, the process is, we have an online application, we send you the setup documents, then we get started with setting up the C corporation. Then the C corporation adopts our IRS approved 401k plan, which is going to allow you to invest in your own business. Your money transfers over, we handle the rollover from your existing account or accounts into that plan. And then you invest in your business. You buy the stock of that C corporation. Once the money hits that C corporation account, you can start using it right away, whether you're buying a business or starting a business. The timing for all that it's going to vary, but usually it's right around that 3-week mark. The biggest X factor is the time that it takes for the money to be transferred from wherever it is today. So every retirement plan provider has a unique process. We're familiar with 99% of them just because we've been doing it so long, and we handle that process. But sometimes they want you to go online. Sometimes they want you to submit a form. They're sending out a check. So we want to start that transfer process at the beginning to shorten the overall time to get your business funded. And then the cost, of course, we charge $4,000, which is everything for the first 12 months. It's everything that's needed to set up and fund your plan, plus the first 12 months of ongoing compliance support. Starting 12 months later, we charge an annual fee of $899. So that would cover your second year. So for the first 2 years, you would pay $4,899, and that would cover you. So in terms of contacting us, you can contact me again at george@mysolo401k.net, our business at mysolo401k.net, 1-800-489-7571. Okay, great. We got some good questions here. How long does it take to fund my business? Usually about 3 weeks or so. Your biggest X factor, again, is almost always going to be the time it takes for the money to transfer over from wherever it is today. So that's why we like to put things on a parallel path. So we start the C corporation formation process, and then the parallel path is we're starting that transfer process. Let's say you have money in a TSP. We would prepare the TSP transfer form, then have you sign it. Then we could fax it into the TSP. They process it. They send you a check. So that's why it takes so long, because they're going to go at their own pace. Can I transfer my current employer 401k to the ROBS? Great question. So the answer is no, usually. I mean, you could always check with your current employer. There may be exceptions. So for example, there would be an exception if you're over 59 and a half. There's almost always going to be an exception if the money that you want to roll over to the ROBS, you had rolled over to your current plan from your previous employer plan. Like, let's say you worked at Ford, then you got a job at GM. Now you're currently working at GM, you want to do a ROBS, and you rolled over your Ford 401k to your GM 401k. GM is going to likely allow you to transfer out at least the money that you rolled over, even if you don't quit your job at GM. Now, of course, you want to check with your current plan administrator. And an easy way to check is to just call them up and say, you ask them if you can transfer the money to an IRA. Because if you can transfer the money to an IRA, you could transfer it to the ROBS. But that's more of the exceptions as far as transferring from the current employer plan. Is there a minimum? No, there's no technical minimum, but the more that you roll over, right, the more taxes and penalties that you're not having to pay by funding the business through the ROBS. So if you're only going to roll over $10,000, $20,000, it's probably not worth doing a ROBS transaction, because you have to pay the costs, the compliance requirements. And if you are looking to really invest less than $50,000, and the business that you want to fund is not going to have any full-time W-2 employees, you might want to consider setting up a solo 401k loan for business financing, because you might find that setup is more attractive because of the cost, because of the less compliance requirements. And I'll include a link when this posts to YouTube to that option, so you can learn more about that in the description. Can I use my IRA to fund my business through an LLC? Well, great question. You can definitely use an IRA as long as it's not a Roth IRA, and roll that over to the ROBS 401k plan. But in order to fund your business with a rollover as business startup, you have to follow specific requirements. And one of those requirements is that the business is operated through a C corporation. So it has to be a corporation at the state level that's taxed as a C corporation at the federal level. So you can't run the business through an LLC. You could always have a subsidiary LLC, like if you got different lines of business, but really the entity that's funded needs to be a C corporation. Another good question. Do I have to invest all of my 401k funds in my business? The answer is no. You could just invest however much you see fit. So you don't have to put them all in there. So the other money that is not invested in company stock, that's not invested in your business, that money is going to stay inside your 401k account, and you can use it and invest it however you see fit. So for example, we could set you up with an account, a free brokerage account, for example, at Fidelity, where you can invest that money just like you would any other brokerage account at Fidelity, you know, a mutual fund, stocks, bonds, etc. Great questions. So again, I'll be posting this video on YouTube, so you'll be able to come back and watch it later. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to join. Please like this video. Please subscribe for more videos like this. If you're watching this as a recording, please feel free to ask questions in the comments or email me at business@mysolo401k.net is our main one, or you can email me directly at george@mysolo401k.net. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.